Going okay. How about you?
It's going really well. Carrie?
And we are not, it's not raining and the sun's shining, so why wouldn't it be a good thing?
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, it has been a super busy week for me personally. And it's only Tuesday, so like I'm on like day 10 of 13 on a work stretch. So I was tired, boss. I'm real tired. Baseball season is long. I'm sure we will jump into some baseball news real quick, but that is what's been going on in my life. I'm kind of glad that the team is out of town for 2 weeks. I still have to work those 2 weeks. I just don't have to work till 10 or 11 at night. I only have to work till 5 or 6. But it's
some cushion there.
it is. I will say, and maybe this can kind of be part of our happy story too, because baseball has been such a big part of my life this last month and the last year, really. I got a small promotion with the team and I get to say some cool things now, like, hey, I got a key to the stadium, or, oh, I got an email that says probaseball.com, so it has been, kind of a dream come true. It's hard work, but it's a dream come true for sure.
That's fantastic. And we're so proud for you.
Thank you.
You've worked hard and you earned it. So good job.
Still working hard. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, Candy, let's start off with our topics tonight with yours first.
So since we're talking baseball,
yeah,
one of the things that was announced today is that the MLB has removed Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and other deceased players from the permanently ineligible list for the Hall of Fame. So basically they've come out and said that they can now be put in the Hall of Fame. The earliest, though, that Rose and Jackson could be inducted would be 2028.
Okay.
But they're talking about putting like a separate little section for those that after they
right.
away.
And I would never had a problem with them putting an asterisk by any of those names, to be honest. And I know that we have debated and talked about whether Pete should be in there for a really long time. And as a player, he should have been in there probably anyway. But I also understand the other side of it, because the man was still endorsing gambling companies later in life. And how can you have him banned and then put him in there, and then you've got an asterisk and it's for gambling, but you're still endorsing gambling companies to the day you died? Like, I understand why they couldn't do it. And so I'm not surprised by them doing it, saying this now, lifting the ban immediately. Like, he's not going to go into the Hall of Fame right away, but I'm not surprised by them lifting the ban right away. I'm surprised by Joe's lift, though, to be perfectly honest. I thought they would hold on to that forever.
I'm surprised too.
I am too. I did see a quote that said that they have determined that the ban, a lifetime ban, would be while they were living, and so then is it posthumously, or however you, that's a word that I stumble on, is an option. Yay! Don't ask me to say the dark sauce that starts with a W, because we don't. That's a different word every time it comes out. No, but I think that I understand, and I agree with you, Kenny. You can't, or Megan, you can't have someone who is actively promoting something that you want banned in your sport.
Right.
That makes complete sense. And so that doesn't surprise me, but I am glad that that's something that, because their history needs to be kept enshrined somewhere.
Right.
And where else but their Hall of Fame, because they did add to the sport.
You can't tell the story of the sport without those two,
Correct.
And so I think that's what determines going into the Hall of Fame for me. It's not necessarily the accolades or the rings that necessarily, that is part of it. It's part of your bid into the Hall of Fame, whatever sport it is. But I think if you can't tell the story of the sport, regardless of championships or regardless of extenuating circumstances, then they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Reggie Miller, for example, did not win a ring, but can you tell the story without can you tell the story of the basketball without the Millers? no, you can't, like it's part of the history of basketball, him and his sister. So I guess the reason it surprises me with Joe is because he's been gone so long and they just held on to it for so long. Like
Right.
Pete just passed away this past year and Joe's been gone a really long time. And so for me, that's why I was like, man, they might just hold on to this forever. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they're not, because it is part of the history of baseball and you need to tell that portion of the story about what happened. And so acting like it doesn't exist and keeping it out of the Hall of Fame doesn't change that we all know it happened.
Well, and I think part of the reason why they're talking about it now is they're saying that obviously a person that's no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game. Like you said, they can't change the course. I mean, history has already been made. What they did is done, and you can't go back and change it, but they can't threaten anything about baseball anymore.
True.
So, and you
Very
said,
true.
like you said, Shoeless Joe Jackson, I think I read he passed away like back in 1951. So yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like he's been gone for, 3/4 of a century. That's how long
And
he's been gone.
honestly, I forgot he wasn't in there. So when I saw that, I'm like,
Right.
and here's the way, another thing I'm looking at is the whole history part is in 50 years, who's going to remember Pete Rose? Because we're not going to be here. We're not going to be, our generation is not going to be here to remind or to talk about it. The current generation of talk people are not going to be here in 50
Right.
years. So if they're not enshrined there, the story goes. It's
Right,
gone.
because
It's
I'm
lost.
not old enough to have seen him play. I'm old enough to know about him as a coach. And so you're right. Like you move further in time and you move away from that story unless you put it there and make people know
And
that
see,
it's there.
that's with me with Shoeless Joe is like that. I'm like, I'm trying to, currently right now trying to remember exactly. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just thinking that
What
what
I
a
know
move.
about Joe is from Field of Dreams, and that's how I knew about it.
Oh, yeah.
And then of course since then, but that's how I learned about him was through Field of Dreams. Like
So
we
I
weren't alive
can't,
for that.
yeah, I just can't. I think it's time. And I think if they want the integrity of the sport and the history to be there, they have to show the underbelly as well as they show the celebrations and the good things.
I agree. Well, speaking of the integrity of the sport, Candy, you got another topic.
Oh my gosh, I'm all about these this time. Why people don't know that social media can make you or destroy you. And that's what's one of the things I really tell young people these days is be careful what you post, because once you put it out there, it's out there. People have seen it. It's not going to go away. And what you say can come back to bite you. Like, I especially tell people, like, if you're going out for a job, one of the things they do now is they look at all your social media to see what you're posting. So be careful. Speaking of that, Panthers vice chairman and alternate governor Doug Sifu was suspended by the NHL over social media comments. He is suspended from any involvement with the team or the league for right now, and his now shuttered social media account has been shut down. But because he went on an exchange with a fan from Toronto. But obviously, the Panthers are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs right now in the second round, and they were going back and forth. And he said some things that, and it really doesn't matter. I'm not even going to get into it on here, but he said some things that he shouldn't. And as someone in his position on a team should know better. Period.
Right. And the Panthers right now, they're currently tied in their series 2-2. So that's a huge blow to them. However, I think, you can kind of look at the NBA playoffs as an example here because they had to ban someone as well. So Tyrese Halliburton's dad was banned from being in the facility anymore. I don't know if that will continue next season too, but for now, that's the case. And he's played a little bit better. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that takes some of the pressure.
Maybe he'll ask for the ban.
Ban on a dad. This is a ban on someone that's an executive level for a team. It's a distraction for the team.
For sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Well, the whole social media thing as a teacher, when I was a teacher, they said, you can't be cognizant And so I haven't taught since 2011, but I still think about how I'm posting 14 years
Mhm.
later, because what do I want people to see about me? What do I want my image to look like? And so that's what I'm thinking about.
Mhm.
Am I always true to it? Not necessarily, but at least you've been thinking about it. And I shared that with my child. So, it's that whole, you think before you speak, give your guardian angel a chance to get caught up with you, and then speak.
I mean, and while we may not say exactly what he said, it was to the level that, you have to be held responsible for misogynistic, racist, anti-Semitic. Like, you have to be held responsible for those types of comments, and
Right.
that was the direction he was at with things.
Mhm.
And so I am personally, I'm not the biggest fan of cancel culture. However, you need to be held accountable for those things. And so I'm glad that they acted immediately, and then they're
Mhm.
not accepting that. So I think the NHL did the right thing.
Yep.
Well, in today's culture, the fact that they stood up and made a statement, and by banning him, saying
Mhm.
they're not going to accept it, that says a whole lot in our, it doesn't take too long for you to scroll through your Facebook feeds that everyone sees the dissent
Right.
and the disparaging remarks. I think it's very honorable that the NHL said, no, we're not even accepting this. This should not have ever happened. This is not our image. We're going to make a stand for it. So kudos to them.
And, I think the NHL or hockey as a whole got a boost this last season with the international tournament, the All Star celebration that they did. Shout out to them, because they seem to be the only sport that has All Star figured out. Wrong. The W has it figured out pretty well, too. But their All Star changes every other year, because one year it's just All Stars, and then the next year it's Team USA versus Team All Stars. So there's always a little switch up when it comes to the W. But back to hockey, I do think that they took a boost, and because eyes are on you right now a little bit more than they were in the couple of years, this is something that you have to stand by, because it's an international sport. It's one of those that, America comes second when it comes to this sport, or maybe third, actually, because you got
Mhm.
Russia, Canada, and there's a ton of other places too, but it was not a predominantly American sport. However, I do think that region, Carolina, Florida, they have cemented their validity in hockey right now. And Panthers being one of those, the Lightning, the Hurricanes, like, that region has shown, like, hey, we can support hockey even though we're southern states.
Right.
And so you gotta stick with what's right. And I applaud them for doing the right thing.
I agree. I agree.
All right, Carrie, let's jump
We're
over
going to
your
say, speaking international teams,
right.
we're getting some great segues tonight, girl. Way to go. So we have most of the international games for the NFL, and we've always had a conversation. I see it happening right now in different groups about, the give and take. Is it something we want to do? Obviously, it's very big for the NFL. The only other way that they can grow their organization is by going international, because
Right.
they have tapped into many of the avenues here nationally. So we have to look at international. That being said, we have 6 games that are confirmed of who's playing. And then we have one that we have a very high probability we will be of knowing who's playing as the away team for the last one. And that would be the one in Sao Paulo. The Chargers are going to be the home team. It is estimated that the Chiefs will be the one that'll be the away team there.
Okay.
That we'll find out for sure tomorrow. We like to make sure we have the facts as straight as possible. So it's something that we think is happening, but we don't know for sure. We'll be able to find out with everybody else tomorrow. There will be a game screen is smaller than I thought it was. Okay, so we have the end of September, we have in Dublin, it'll be the Vikings versus the Steelers, and
And
Steelers
that
being at
one's
home.
interesting to me. So when I heard about that game in Dublin, I'm not surprised that they're doing football there, because they had the opening game for Notre
Oh,
Dame was over
yes.
there. The team that beat them, Georgia Tech, their kicker who won the game for them was from Ireland, and so there was ties to it. I don't quite understand why you would send the Vikings. The Vikings used to invade this part of the country, y'all. Of the
Right.
world. I mean, they like the Vikings came through and destroyed a lot of these countries, and
The
were
real, I
invaded.
mean,
So we're
the
gonna send the
group,
Vikings over there? I just thought it was funny. It had World
well,
War implications.
is the Steelers the one that have a very strong hold in Dublin? Is that the team that, yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Oh,
see
okay.
that. But with you, I'm like, we're gonna send the invading nomadic people
Right.
to
I mean,
Europe to
it's the team.
promote
It is just entertainment value, but I thought it was
right,
funny.
to promote international teams. Yes, I think that's
And we're
fantastic.
keeping them over there for 2 weeks, back to
Well,
back
then
Right.
I
shows.
was gonna say, now I feel like the Vikings are going to have an advantage because they're going to be set on that time zone.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they're staying again as an away team. So they're the visitors, and they'll be playing in London the following week for against the Browns. I'm curious
Also
about
interesting.
why the Browns is my
Right,
question.
because
I
it
mean,
should be the Jags. If there's gonna, I think that we are on the verge of the Jags being in London permanently, probably,
that's kind of my
or
thought
at least
too.
half the season. You know, I think they'll be over there for a portion of that. If it's a team that's going to go international, it's going to be the Jags, and it's going to be in London because they literally have the same owner as the Hotspurs, which is Tottenham, which is my soccer team, y'all. Now, very strange ownership group. We know this. We know this. They also the same owner for AEW, right? So wrestling as well. I will say they have the best mascot probably of all time. The Jags do. He's one of the highest paid. He's and earns every bit of it because he is absolutely that character and puts on an amazing show, whether the team shows up or not.
Mhm.
But I was a little confused by why not the Jags in that position right there
Well,
because I think they're
now
primed
that
and ready for it.
in 2 weeks, the Jags will be there as the home team. But
Oh,
in
okay, I
be
see.
yes, so the following after the Browns and Vikings are in London, we're going to see Broncos and Jets the following week in London.
Okay.
And then the Jags will be the week of October 19th. Rams will be the visiting team. However, they're going to be at Wembley Stadium and not Khan's Stadium that he built
Okay.
over there. So it's going to be a different
I
stadium.
The only
Interesting.
the only destination that I don't like out of these because it's obvious why we're going to Germany. It's obvious why we're going to London. These games sell out in minutes, y'all. They love these games over there, and it's proven to be successful. Complete and these stadiums, these soccer arenas are much larger than the football stadiums, which are huge already, 50, 60,000. And then you're going to soccer stadiums that are 80 to 100,000, or some of them are 120,000. I don't know if the NFL is prepared to deal with crowds that size. I hope they are because the people want to be there. But the destination I have a problem with is they keep going to Brazil. And it's not that I dislike Brazil. South America is beautiful. It is a beautiful country, but it is a dangerous country. And we already have an example of this going bad with the Rio Olympics. And there are huge gang affiliations. And here we are sending teams with colors that conflict. And this was last year, the green. Both teams
Well,
they sent were green. They couldn't, if you're having to tell all your employees, including the athletes, you can't bring your family, you can't leave the hotel room, maybe you should think it through and not be at that destination. Surely you can find a different destination because what I don't know if everybody knows this, but when a lot of times when gangs have certain colors with stuff, they wear gear. That's what they wear, and that's how they're able to display their colors like that. So in certain cases, so it seems very not like a smart decision to me. Now,
I don't
Whether they're gonna make
understand
the
it
money or
either.
not, it's obviously it's a money decision, and I'm sure it is. But how much is that money gonna what matters more, the safety or the money?
It's also the area that I'm most concerned about if a player gets injured.
Okay. Mm,
And
that's
here's
a
the
good
reason
point.
why. Do we know what their medical
That's a good point, Carrie. I hadn't thought about that.
how good is their medical system?
So let's say we have
I
another situation like Damar Hamlin, and is he going to be okay there? Are they going to be, are they even okay? Another portion to think about here. We know the international climate towards the United States isn't the best right now.
correct.
So is that smart? And then going, and what if you have a medical emergency? Are they going to treat that person um, with the best intentions, or are they not? You know, like
Well,
it seems like there's a lot that could go wrong.
and let's stop and think. Remember Shearer from Pittsburgh when he broke his neck on the field?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, so are they leaving Shearer? Would they leave, or Alex Smith? And
Right.
even in our health system, he got the flesh-eating bacteria, and it really destroyed his leg. And
Right.
he's lucky, one, to be alive, and two, to be able to walk. So
Right.
we've got, if something, God forbid, that something like that happens, how are you moving a critically ill or critically injured person from an international team hospital back to the United States safely?
It's a good point, Gary. I
That's
hadn't even
that's
that hadn't even crossed my mind yet. That is a very
well,
good point.
that's I got to thinking about that, and Damar Hamlin and his parents being able to stay with him. How are they? That's just as important. We've seen it with, all of us have firsthand experience of how having your loved ones there in the hospital or with you is pivotal in changing
For
the
sure.
outcome of the situation. So we have
Okay.
these injured athletes internationally. What happens next? That's probably
Well, and it
from the
may not
mama
even
heart.
be just the athletes because, you see what I'm going through with the Spurs. It could be the coach or it could be anybody that's involved with it, and you just don't know what's going to happen because
Well, didn't Harbaugh
not to
have
say that
a
our healthcare system is the best by any means, but at least we know it.
right? That's just me as a mama
We're
and as
familiar
a
with it at
as
least.
having people that I love being
For
recently in the
sure.
hospital. You've got to think about that's something that resides on my mind. But
No, very
we've gone up a little bit there. We do have the international going to Berlin with the Colts hosting Atlanta, and then we have ended with um, the Dolphins hosting Washington in Madrid. So really interesting that the international really starts September 28th and runs to the 16th of November, with the caveat that opening weekend there'll be a game in Sao Paulo.
That's
So
really the only game I'm worried about, to be honest, is the Brazilian destination. I think that the Spanish destination is interesting. I have people that I knew that left America, sold their home, moved to Spain. Probably 6 years ago when the political climate started to change, but also they lived in California, they were able to sell their home for a ton of money and buy an amazing house there in Spain. Well, in October they got sent home because they knew what was going on with our government, and their visas were revoked and they were sent home. And so I find that interesting that they were open to a game, but they were not open to our people being there. So just interesting.
that's
There's very interesting. But the only one that I'm super concerned about, of course, is the Brazilian game. I think the other destinations completely make sense. They love NFL in Germany. They love it. Those games sell out so quick. So I don't blame them for going there.
Now, the other thing I am concerned about is if the rumors are true, we are sending the quarterback that is the measurement of the current generation of quarterbacks. So if the Chiefs are definitely going to be, if that's who ends up playing that opening weekend in Sao Paulo, we're sending Patrick Mahomes down to a field that is not designed to handle any football player. the ground was built for the soccer players that are light without extra gear. And we already know that Jordan Love got injured last year. So
Oh yeah, good point.
as a fan, I'm curious what they've done differently, if they plan to do anything differently to that field,
Right.
because that's my quarterback going down there. And I watched as Candies got injured last year.
It's a different destination, so it's a different field, but I don't know if the conditions are different than that field. I just know it's a different field because the gang association in there, their colors are red and black. And so if it's the Chiefs, what heck are you thinking?
Well, then also, what happened to Mexico? We used to play games in Mexico, and we quit that.
See, when Mexico told us they weren't building the wall, I think that's when those opportunities ended.
I was like, I wonder what just dawned on me. I'm like, the Chiefs had to go to Mexico several times, but
they did,
fine.
and I think that the Mexican people enjoyed those games, and I think they sold out really well. Like I think they had a lot of positive from it. And ever since the political climate became kind of iffy, and I think that that's just something that becomes a factor in this. And I don't blame them for moving to the international level because your growth in America is done. I mean, you've already tapped it out. Like everybody loves it, everybody watches it. I mean, not everybody, but mass majority, you have that viewership. Like you're not going to go up. So you have to expand. I think another logical location that they could go to is Japan. Now they've had preseason games there before. And the Japanese people love American football. So I think that could be a destination you could go to.
Why aren't we in Canada is the one question I've always asked.
Once again, the political climate is not great for that.
Right. But I never figured it, even when we were going to Mexico, why are we not playing in Canada as well?
No, I agree. I completely agree with that.
I mean, that's always been a question.
So many arena teams there already. They have the Canadian
CFL
League. Like it makes sense.
Yeah, we'd be competing, and I think with the CFL that they just don't want that kind of conflict, because they have their own league, whereas these others don't play American football. Like CFL is closest to NFL than obviously soccer and stuff like that. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a quick NBA update right now. Well, first off, I'm going to start off and say the WNBA season starts this Friday. League pass for the entire season is only $35. It's not that much. You sit there and hear people talking about the average. If you want to watch every NFL game, you're paying $1,500 a season this year. And that's not the case in the W. You can pay $35 and it's for the entire season, or you can pay $12.99 a month. Both of those I think are really economical, and it kind of helps alleviate the where are we going to watch the game question. You've got it automatically. It's either within their app or on YouTube, the same way NBA does their league pass, just cheaper. And so anyway,
what you need is say if Candy needs to jump off because she's got a heart out. We appreciate you, Candy.
I am. Love you guys. Have a great week.
You too. Now jumping into the NBA. So right now we are in the semis. We had an awful injury last night. So we had Jason Tatum, who had an amazing game until the injury. 40 or 42 points, 4 assists, and 8 boards within 40 minutes. And then goes down with, we all knew it when we saw it, an Achilles tear.
Right.
And they didn't make it official, which I understand now. They didn't make it official until he got out of successful surgery and said that, things went well. Just praying for the kid. I know that's tough. You're going to miss the entire season.
I tell you what, that was a fantastic game. If you weren't watching it, we were watching it here. We watched it him go down, and it was gut wrenching to watch him being picked up, taken off, and then they flash back and let us see him in a wheelchair. And I'm like, I don't know, that to me was a little much, because let the man, he's in pain. Let's not throw salt on the wound.
I saw Tyler Marsh, who is the head coach of the Chicago Sky, made a post saying that the cameras in the tunnels during injuries are completely unnecessary. And I just, coach, I completely agree. We kind of joke around that we don't want to have interviews with people during the game, in between quarters, and while the game's going on. Like, we don't really want to see that. We want to see the game going on. But when it comes to injuries like that, like we don't need to see all that. Like give the
Well, I
person
mean,
privacy. And that was something actually that Carl Anthony Towns, who's on the opposing team when this happened, that was his comment. He said, I got close, but I stayed back a little bit too at the same time. He said he said a prayer for him, but that he kept his distance to give him his privacy. And I thought that was really classy.
well, we watched them load JJ Watt into the ambulance when he injured himself years ago. And I'm like, to me, that is just like that was outside the facility and they took the cameras out there too.
Yeah, it's too
And I'm
much.
like, that's where I'm like, kind of like that, the hallway. Let the athletes that are going down a hallway be down a hallway without any distraction.
No, I
That's
agree.
kind of their safety zone. And so leave them alone.
So New
That's
York,
fine.
yeah, New York ends up winning this game 121 to 113. They are up on the series 3-1 now, and I have to say, I don't know if Boston was going to make it out of the series regardless, but they're obviously not going to make it out of this series without Jason Tatum. It maybe would have been different if Jaylen Brown went down. I think it still would have been really hard, but this is your team leader. This is everybody, So I think the Celtics are done. We only have one series in the playoffs right now that's tied at the moment, and we are at that pivotal point right now. We're at game fives, and game fives historically, whoever wins game five, 85% of the time, or some close to that number, wins the series. So the only series right now that is tied going into game five is the Nuggets versus the Thunder. It's going to be today at 8:30 p.m. Central, so 9:30 Eastern. They will be in OKC for this game. I like OKC in this series. Now, I think it's going to go all the way 7. So I think they're going to go back and forth, and it's going to go all the way 7, but I like OKC in this one.
I am too. They're the team that's closest to me.
Same. They're only 4 hours from me.
They're about that for me too. So if I'm going to root for a team, that's going to be me because everybody else is
Well,
a
and
satellite.
I'll say this: their superstar, which they got a couple, but their superstar SGA is such a likable guy. And I think if there's somebody you want to
Well, that's
support, he's one of those that I love it. And I love that he's having success after the team that drafted him gave up on him, the Clippers. All right, then we got the Timberwolves versus the Warriors. This game was yesterday, game 4. Timberwolves win this one in Golden State. Still no Steph, 117 to 110. Steph may not be available until game 3. I think Steph is really hurt, y'all. It's a hamstring strain. It's not something you get over in a week or 4 days. We saw a hamstring strain nag James Harden for 2.5 seasons. So it's not something that's going to go away like that. So it depends on the severity and degree of the strain, obviously, but I think Golden State's probably cooked in this one as well. And then you got the Pacers versus the Cavs. That's the early game. It's going on right now. And the Cavs are up 52 to 47 with 3:24 left in the second quarter. They are in Cleveland, so they could get a win. But I think the Pacers probably, if they don't end it tonight, they end it next game.
agree with you on that. We've been watching a lot of the playoff, and you can see the ones that are. Even though
Look, they were so disheartened that their tickets for this game 5 in the semis, were going for $60.
wow, you can kind of last night's game. If back to the Celtics game, it was going all Celtics in the first half. There was nothing that the Celtics could do wrong, and then the game shifted. And I don't even think that had Tatum stayed healthy, they would have been able to stop the run.
Well, so that does it for us this week. That's been your NBA update. We talked a little MLB and some of the international schedule for the NFL. Our happy story this week was the lifetime bans being lifted in baseball. It's time. We're so glad to see those people being able to be allowed into the Hall of Fame whenever they will be inducted. And we will be back next week, same time. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.